Yeah. So we can work on that. But I'm yours. So anything you want to talk about there's nothing off limits. I'm super happy to talk freely.
All right. Yeah, cool. Let's do it. So you've been doing breath work. Are you a breath work teacher too, or breath work facilitator?
Yeah, I've been
Just kind
doing
of like experimenting.
I studied with Patrick McEwen from Oxygen Advantage, and I'm XPT certified, which has a component of breathwork. And I belong to a breathwork tribe or community under the mentorship of Casper van der Meulen, and he was one of Wim Hof's right hand men for a while, sort of in the cold and breath trajectory, and as a wonderful breathwork teacher and mentor of mine who I dearly, dearly love. And I've been going through his advanced, his 1, 2, and 3 level certification. So lots of breath in my background, lots of reading and understanding the nature and science of how we breathe biomechanically, as well as what it does physiologically to our body.
Mm-hmm. Super cool. Yeah, so definitely want to talk a little bit more about it, because I've been like so excited about breath work, and cold is one of the things that's also we kind of share. This is how we met.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So why don't you tell us who you are, and in a couple of words, what you're doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Kristin Weitzel, and I run a company called Warrior Woman Mode, and I am a host of a podcast called Well Power Podcast, which is your biohacking roadmap. My business is surrounding predominantly work with biological females, working to transform them into the healthy powerhouses that they were always meant to be, using fitness and nutrition and various different types of biohacking. And it's my peak expression in the world. It's what I love to do. And you and I have had this great fortune of meeting each other through cold exposure, deliberate cold exposure, and understanding how to coach that. And I have a big love for the cold, for exposure training, and for breath work.
So cool. You know what? I got chills, and it's not because of cold, but I think because like how you said, what's important for you, and kind of like how you feel like this is what you're kind of called to do, empowering women. So I think this is really, really cool. But how did it all start?
It all started in this really interesting reverberation in my life where two things happened. I grew up a dancer. I tell this story a lot, so I'll be as brief as possible, but there was lots of challenges in the way I was growing. I was like pretty petite and little, and then I hit puberty around 16, and I had been doing this dance training my whole childhood, wanting to be a ballerina, maybe having dreams of being a prima ballerina one day. And when I went through puberty, I got a very distinct feminine shape that back in those days was sort of counterintuitive to what was happening in the dance world around ballet, right? Women were meant to be and spoken to as if they should be smaller, they should be eating less, they should be, fit a specific prescribed mold of what a ballerina might look like. And I think we know a lot more now about how unhealthy some of those behaviors are. It's still that eating disorders can exist in sort of that dance performance theater world, but I was pretty heartbroken over the fact that I got this shape, and immediately my lead ballet teacher was like, "Listen, I don't know if this is in the cards for you anymore, because I got chesty and I really developed into this hourglass shape that didn't fit, like I said, the typical mold." And so I started getting curious about why this was happening, why I was seeing other young women not eating very much, how I could also, because I loved food, how I could figure out food and nutrition in a way that would still fuel my body. And I began experimenting in my, mid-teens, and pretty early on for someone like of my age, where I was like, I bought a juicer and I was green juicing at 17 and 18 years old. And I was experimenting with like vegetarianism and various different diets and eating lifestyles in a way that even, borderline dysfunction in some areas, because I was trying to experiment, like do this kind of pre-biohacking era experimentation to see what I could do with physique transformation and how I could maybe not obsess over food and manage that. And so that just started the trajectory of my curiosity and the adventures of how do I, experiment in a lot of ways with my body, my physique, my physiology, my cellular health, things like that, into the era of Dave Asprey, who coined the term biohacking about 12 years ago. So I've been biohacking and trying things that I think some people think feel a little extreme, but many people feel like they have become the norm. And the second piece of this whole puzzle is like there's all this background of being a woman and looking at myself in the mirror and trying to understand how I can speak to my body well and how I can heal it and take care of it. And that's coupled with, as soon as I went into corporate America, I was immediately thrown into all these situations based on the industry I was working in, consumer packaged goods, and it was all men. So I worked in beer, I launched Red Bull, energy drink, I worked in the spirits industry, and it was all men and me. Quite often in the first division I worked in, it was 18 men and me. And what I started to notice was this big divide in communication, in management style, in the way that I wanted to take care of my body versus some of those men and the way they took care of theirs, and just understanding over the first 5 years of my career, I really transformed my communication style and lots of things I was doing into mirroring the boys club, right? And that was like, in some ways, in order to survive in this industry that I was in, and in many ways did me a disservice over the long haul, because what's happened also in the health and wellness world is that there's like, we follow a lot of the male research. We are, leaning into the things that like the boys club is saying, and it isn't always efficient and effective for us as women. And so the lesson I got from working in the corporate world, although I had lots of male bosses that were great, I had plenty of male bosses and colleagues that were just not wonderful. And I learned what I would not want to do as a boss in the future. And so I started to have and hire work with women. And as I was sitting in reviews with them, and they would say to me, I'd give them a good review or talk to them about their performance. And at the end of the meeting, they'd say, "Can I ask you a question? Like, do you like me? Like, do we get along? Do we feel like?" And I was missing sort of this part of myself that was, my heart and my feelings and the love I had for working with other people. And I was pretty closed off because of the way that I felt like I had to work in an industry that was predominantly male. And so from that point on, I started to say, there's something amok here. I need to understand how I can work with women better, because I've almost gone into a different role, right? I've become, I've just become more commanding and demanding and really compartmentalized the way that I did work. And as I exited the corporate scene and started to work more in health and fitness, which I was getting certifications and doing all this like dance, cardio, and all these different fitness trainings and working out the entire time of my corporate career, I realized that the community I needed to serve was females, because there was a lot of different outside pressure from all the way back to when I was a kid, and there's pressure with women in a circle, to going to the corporate American job, which was like all these men in a circle with a different type of pressure, right? To get the job done in a different way and to communicate in a certain way. And that it felt like the females of the world, let's talk about biological females as well, because the research and because the way we do nutrition and the way we work with our reproductive cycle, we were quite underserved. And, it's sort of like the lessons I learned I needed to bring to the table, and wanted to uplift other women and support other women in all the ways that they weren't getting served. There are plenty of wonderful men in the corporate world, in the fitness training world, but what I really resonate with is finding and working with women who are, a little bit at the end of their rope, that have come from a background and culture of corporate America or are in entrepreneurship, who are dealing with challenges like I face, whether it be around food, whether it be around, negative self-talk, or whether it be about, how to communicate better and really from their own truth. And so that's sort of the shortest version of the story that I can tell you, where this all started and why it's so important to me to work with females, right? And there is a whole landscape of the way we show up in the world, male, female, non-binary, trans community, like lots of people that I have in my friendship circles and that I love. But I talk a lot about, I work with women, and by that I mean biological females, because there are physiological components of being a biological female that we have to take into consideration when it comes to health and well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like with the current climate and culture that's going on, I think it's there's nothing wrong in talking about biological females. I think there is such thing, and we have to honor that. So it's kind of.
And I want to be inclusive. Like there is also a thing that's like, people are like warrior woman mode. Is it like it's all like you're trying to be like all hardcore, or is it only about, why is it about women against men? And it's nothing to do with that. It's really like, how can we stand in our own power and balance the soft and the hard, and really communicate well and actually speak our own truth in a way that's like both soft and strong, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't get to do that all the time. So
Yeah.
That's my mission.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit, like how would you define biohacking first? And then I have this impression that it's more like male dominated area. Is that true?
So biohacking is it's in the dictionary now. It has been for a few years, and it really is. I think Dave would kind of define it. Dave Asprey would define it as, and just for those of anyone who's listening, Dave Asprey is the sort of the godfather of the bulletproof coffee and the bulletproof diet, and many people know who he is. But he talks about it being, the thing where we work to change the environment inside and outside of ourselves in order to become, live longer, better, and be more efficient in the way that we take care of ourselves and our health. And I think that is, a big portion of it. I think also it includes, a balance of ancient practices and modern science and technology, that the weaving of those two things together, that it is not always something that is highly expensive, which in the media, quite often things are touted and sensationalized in a way that's like, this thing is $8,000 and try this and inject these needles and do all this to our bodies. And it's not all about that, right? Breathwork can be free. You can stay in your house, take the time to do it, and it is a biohack. Different styles of cold exposure, whether it be cold shower, etc., are biohacks. Getting out into in the beach, in the water, in the ocean, on a mountaintop, that's all grounding and electromagnetic field, earthing or grounding, we might call it, and that's all biohacking. And so, yes, you can inject all the things and get on all the really expensive tech, and track your data, and some of those things are really important, but it doesn't require a high cost budget to get started in that. And you're right, it started pretty male dominated. There was lots of the sensational things that tend to get put out into the news and social media, right? Ben Greenfield is putting red light on his testicles and he's like, I'm gonna, it's all wonderful, and it seems a little risky, right? A little edgy in the beginning. And sometimes, I'm generalizing, but men shooting from the hip in that industry, coming out of the world of tech, like Dave came out of tech, Ben Greenfield, these are some of like the groundbreakers in the biohacking scene, right? There's guys overseas that have done a lot of different things, that they're like coming from an athlete background, coming from a scientific background, or coming from a Silicon Valley tech background. And so, in that landscape, things are like cutting edge and what's next and what's the hot new thing. And I believe that generalizing again, quite often as women, we are a little bit more, maybe genetically predisposed, but a little bit more risk averse. We're like, hey, that's cool, and let me see a little bit more about that before I go injecting things or putting red light or whatever. Now the tide has turned a lot. I mean, there's a lot of women in the industry. There are a lot of people that I sit and chat with. You and I met Adrienne. I've known Adrienne for a while, and I consider her one of the, the premier female biohackers in the cold exposure space. And there are more and more women coming into the fold. But the first 5-10 years or so, there's this I call them the biohacking brethren, right? I mean it with love. It's like not bro culture, but it's definitely been male dominated for quite some time. It's why in 4 weeks, I'm speaking at the biohacking conference in Florida on how to biohack like a warrior woman, to be able to talk about the differences in the research and in the modalities and the way we do things as females to serve ourselves, to serve our physiology the very best way we can. And so it's starting to turn. That's a big deal for me to be able to speak at this beautiful conference of Dave's, and also to be able to speak to women, and having that on the roster as a talk is a big turning point, right? There's lots of women that have come before me in the meditation space, amazing doctors, but they haven't quite gotten enough stage time and voice, in my opinion, over the last 10 or 12 years since the biohacking term was coined.
Yeah, I like what you said about the free biohacking stuff. I feel like a lot of times we think that everything has to be super expensive. Some of the stuff, yeah, of course it is expensive. Like you mentioned, if you want to get a good red light therapy unit, then that costs a lot of money. And I'm not even sure, and maybe you can talk about a little bit more how safe those devices always are. But I feel like, the best stuff is the free stuff. Isn't it? Like, yeah, like you said, grounding, take your shoes off, walk barefoot, not on the grass that's like heavily treated with stuff, but outside, somewhere when it's better, like get some sunlight, earthing, grounding, meditation, cold work. Like these things are free actually.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that has to be very, very expensive, but I have this impression that a lot of the things are. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the red light? I'm kind of curious about that. Like, is it
Yeah.
always safe? What should we look out for? What are the health benefits? If you want to buy something, where would you go and buy it?
Yeah, absolutely. So red light therapy has been around since, I want to say, 1805, but I might be getting my dates a little bit off. Um, there was a gentleman named Niall Stinson who I believe discovered like the ruby laser, like low level laser therapy. And when we're talking about lasers or red light therapy, this is nothing invasive. So for anyone who's listening, it's not anything that's like breaking the skin or feels intense or anything like that. This is literally like, if there are specific wavelengths of light that we get from sunlight, like natural sunlight, right? There's lots of wavelengths of light in general, but from sunlight we get specific wavelengths of light. And some of those wavelengths of light are helping set our circadian rhythm, like the sunrise and sunset hours can help with, because our eyes are a part of our brain and our nervous system. They take in light and they set our circadian rhythm for the day. So that's like the rhythm that helps us our waking and sleeping times of the day, when we get tired, when we produce melatonin at night, etc. It's why you will see sometimes people will have blue light blocking glasses on and be setting themselves up for sleep really well. So photobiomodulation is the fancy scientific word that's the umbrella for all different wavelengths of light, and there are lots of different spectrums of colors of light. But the amount of research specifically that has been done on red light and targeted red light therapy has really, it's irrefutable that it's helping our cellular health. And so when you look at the studies, when you look at red light therapy, what we're specifically looking for is companies and manufacturers get specific diodes that are red light with these wavelengths, right? And this is why you pay more money than just going out and buying a red light bulb. It's like a party light bulb that you put in and you stand 20 feet away. It's not going to do anything for you. So you want these specific wavelengths of light, infrared and near infrared light, that some of which the eye cannot see. And you want those wavelengths of light to be able to get in close proximity to your skin, because what we've seen in the studies is that they are, the wavelengths of light can help us heal anything from scar tissue, cellular health, helping boost your mitochondrial function, helping the ways your cells communicate with each other. And, pre-pharmaceutical era, we had people being wheeled out of hospitals into the sunlight, and doctors and nurses are recognizing over time that sunlight was actually helping people heal faster, right? And that was a lot to do with the wavelengths of light. And so then the dawn of the pharmaceutical age came, right? It was much easier to give a patient a pill than to like wheel them outside and 20 minutes in the sun and bring them back into the facility. And so that shift happened. And for a number of years, big pharma has been a thing, obviously. Yeah. But understanding that this red light therapy can help us on such a number of levels, really boosting our health, boosting our immune system, helping with, like I said, anything from scar tissue, if it's like targeted red light therapy, to boosting mitochondria and function of the way that the skin and the body is optimizing your health. And so the question becomes, how much does it cost? Like if you're looking at a red light panel that costs anywhere from $700 to $2,000, is there a benefit to buying something at that cost? And my answer to people, or my statement to people quite often, is like, what is the amount of money you're going to have to spend on your health on the back end if you aren't healing your body well and boosting your immunity, your health, and everything in your body in the way that red light can. So to oversimplify it a bit, our body is a battery. And so in order to help charge the mitochondria, to help charge the cells in our body, we can use these nanometers of light, we can use these wavelengths of light to be able to energize the body and actually feed us, right? And so what's the cost? Like, what's the cost ratio? You have a red light panel, you're in a family of 3, you buy a panel for, let's say, $1,500, you hang it in your house, you all get an opportunity to use it, you use it, 4 or 5 times a week for a session, everybody gets a bit healthier and, are optimizing their cellular health and their skin and the way that they feel, of mood boosting. And, what's the cost analysis there? It's like you can have that light for years, right? Versus, one trip to the ER. And so that's the thing I like to have people examine. I think there's a lot of options for panels out there. I will tell everyone who's listening, if you're going with a panel, I think a full length panel is always better than a small panel. It's obviously about your budget and you get to decide for yourself, but a full length panel from a reputable manufacturer that has relatively low or no EMF, so non-native electromagnetic field. So we found that it's a little bit challenging for the cells to live in that environment. It sort of heats your body up. So you want low or no EMF. And then I have a favorite device because I'm on the go all the time. You met me, I'm nonstop. And so I use this device called the Flex Beam. And I love the Flex Beam because a lot of the research is about targeted red light therapy. And because I also train fitness a lot. And so if I've had an injured shoulder, and the Flex Beam device has really, that targeted red light therapy has really helped me heal faster, right? Getting back to the gym, getting back to overhead presses. And I also use it around my diaphragm. You know, we did a little breathing together in that course we just took, and I use it around my diaphragm. I use it against my spine at night, and it helps me downregulate into parasympathetic state and get much better sleep scores when I'm using red light therapy. So there's a number of benefits to it. The interesting thing I will just say as a last note about red light therapy is a lot of times we hear, you know, our cells are better and our mitochondria are energized and our skin's better and our mood is boosted. And it sounds like that's a lot of things for a red light device to do. You know, it heals us and it fixes scar tissue. It's if you get optimization, if you add red light into your body, you are leveling up everything. And the downstream effects of that there's so many benefits. And so, you know, I've written some articles in conjunction with like Sattva, which is a big sleep blog, about people using red light, and basketball players specifically using red light to increase and improve their recovery time and improve their sleep and all those things. And so you up-level your cellular health, your body's going to have a ton of positive downstream effects. And so I'm a huge fan of red light. I just want to make sure that people are going with a reputable manufacturer. I like Flex Beam because I can like strap it on and go. And then, you know, there's lots of different ways to go out and get larger panels if you have like time and space in your home and a budget that allows for that. So check out. So it's pretty cool.
The red light, you know, the saunas that have those red lights, do they work the same? Is that a good idea to sit in a sauna like that?
Infrared saunas have a similar premise. They're using specific wavelengths that are actually, the goal there though is to heat the body. Whereas red light therapy devices are typically, some are emitting a little bit of heat, but they're really about charging your cells and energizing your body in a different way. There are some similar overlaps, but a lot of the infrared saunas they're designed as well to heat you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned your shoulder. I'm like, almost like you knew, because I just hurt my rotator cuff a little bit. I'm like, I can't do.
Let me tell you, until the end of August, there's $100 off deal on the Flex Beam, which is such a good deal. And it's like Recharge.health is the company that makes them. And I just love it. Like I drive a purple Jeep all around LA, and on the way to the gym, I have this like strapped onto my shoulder or my neck or somewhere. And it's like, if it's 5:30 in the morning, it's like this, I'm in a purple Jeep driving all the way down the highway with this like red glowing light in the inside. And I always wonder what people are like, what's happening with that chick over there? But you know, it is what it is. Yeah, and I like it. It's like you can just like strap it on and go. We're having a lot of, like I say we because I've worked with them for several years now. I love the device so much. I tracked them down and said, how can I get more involved? And I've been helping them with some of their work. I've been acting as a global brand ambassador and just spreading the word of targeted red light therapy. And I love it also because it's the only device you can plug in and charge and you just take with you. You don't have to be plugged into an outlet, right? You can just put it on. And so that's super fun to have that. And lots of testimonials coming from people specifically in like fitness, people who have had acute injuries that they can't recover from, and then just some scar tissue things that are really clearing for people. So that's exciting.
I hear really good things about the skin, that people like literally like take, I don't know, 5 years off their face after using this for a while. Like, whoa, what happened? It's just like, one more thing I want to ask about the red light is that the EMFs. So how do you know? How do you know? Like anybody could go on Amazon and see, you know, there's probably plenty of options. How do I know which one to get? And are they?
Any brand that's worth their salt is going to cost, you know, there isn't going to be any good red light out there that's like $50, you know? And so anyone who's sort of worth their salt, just meaning like good companies, reputable companies, you will find that they will be transparent about two things: what kind of red light they have. So if they have like infrared light or near infrared light, they'll tell you what the kind of red light they have. They will be able to give you the schematic or the spec on what nanometer wavelengths, because different nanometers penetrate the skin at different levels. Like with flex beam, for example, like the first setting is more for surface scarring, skin, tissue. And then the second level penetrates a little deeper, and it's a combination of red and near infrared light. And then the third level penetrates a little deeper because the nanometers are important. So you typically want to get like a 650 to 850, 900 nanometer range, something there in the mix. And you also want to go to someone who's going to be transparent about their EMF. Like, I'm the person who asks these questions. I go to info at, and I ask the person, I write customer service, I call them up, and they should, should's a tricky word, but many of these companies will list on their website if they have an EMF rating or not, or you can call them and ask. And anyone who beats around the bush or doesn't quite clearly tell you, those are people that I wouldn't trust. And I do a lot of research around, the companies and the people I work with. And FlexBeam, for sure, there's no EMF because it's not plugged into anything. You charge it and you go, and they're very particular about the materials they're using. And I know that there are other companies like LightPath LED out there that do panels and whatnot. And I don't want to like name a lot of names of companies, but it's like, just do a little bit of your research, know you're going to pay a little bit, and also find someone who's like authentically transparent and isn't hiding anything. It should be pretty available information on their website.
Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about sunlight too. So getting morning sunlight, first thing in the morning, that can also help to set your circadian rhythm, right? So how is that, for example, compared to red light? Is one better? What's the dosage? I mean, you're not.
Well, what we're doing with red light a lot of times is we're biohacking not getting enough sunlight, right? So the different times of day, you're going to get different nanometers of light. But when we talk about sunrise and sunset, that kind of sunlight, it's not just like a vitamin D thing, right? It's about getting the right levels and wavelengths of light into your eyes so that your brain recognizes it as morning or as evening. So it knows to either push your serotonin response as you're waking up. And the best night of sleep starts in the morning,
right?
Which is why I think it's 10 times more important to get out at sunrise. So before 9 a.m., I listen a lot to Andrew Huberman. He's like an icon in the space, talking about brain health and circadian rhythm and how we work with our nervous system, just physiologically. And so he has a lot of great resources on Huberman Lab podcast and social handle. Like, if you're not following him on social, you should be following Andrew Huberman on social. He has really snackable content, and he makes science easy to understand, especially neurology. He's a neurobiologist, which is, for someone like me who did not have any science at university level, really helpful to have someone who can explain it. But what happens is that we have this morning sunlight, and if you're getting outdoors, you don't want to do it through a window because it's half as effective. Getting outside for, let's say, 5 minutes minimum, maybe 15 minutes in the morning, you're getting these wavelengths of red early morning light. It is not about getting sunburned. It is not anything else. You want to have no sunglasses on, no sunblock on. Early morning light exposure will help set your circadian rhythm so that the best night's sleep that you get begins with your first morning waking hours, right? How you get out and get sunlight on your skin, sunlight mostly in your eyes, is what's super important. Sets your circadian rhythm for the day. We have a serotonin response in the morning, and the precursor to melatonin is serotonin. So your body will start to understand, okay, serotonin dump in the morning, and then it will know a certain number of hours later when it's going to begin to produce melatonin, as long as you're not shoving your iPhone in your face. Lots of other blue light, which is how we get confused, or our systems get confused in some ways, right? Because you shove enough light in your face, that's a wavelength that feels like daytime, and your body will not start to mellow out into the evening like it normally used to when we lived by, fire and candlelight and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always like to tell my clients too that your nervous system is not like a light switch that you just turn it on and off like super quickly. You have to give yourself this time in the evening to put the screens away and kind of let your body to get into this mode that, okay, we're going to sleep now. It's not going to just from an iPhone screen to like sleep mode. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, totally. Your body doesn't just like swoop. Okay, I'm fine.
Yeah. I wish it was like that, but I mean, we're still the same humans that we were thousands of years ago. Like you said, we had the daylight and the sunset, and maybe we have the candles and stuff, but the candles are not like bright lights, right? So we're still. Right.
They're not producing any of that negative light for us. Candles and fires don't do that. They don't have EMF. They don't, so they don't have any of that, the negative effects that like light bulbs or fluorescents might have.
Yeah, yeah. I personally even sometimes in the evening, because I feel like I'm pretty sensitive to like very bright lights. I just don't feel well, and then so sometimes I literally like just brush my teeth in a dark bathroom because I'm like I don't want to turn the lights on, or like when I have to use the bathroom at night, I just leave the door open so I can see, but I don't have to turn the light on. I feel
Yeah.
it's
Put
really
a red bulb in my bathroom so that it's
right.
like I don't have to deal with the white light. And then I have like Hue light bulbs. Do you know this brand? I have no affiliation, but I just like the ones that you can change the colors of the light bulbs on your phone and in an app. And so all my bedroom lights are set up like that so that I can like mellow them out and not have them be so stark if I want a little low lighting, and I will make them red.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, we talked a lot about red light. So what are some of your other favorite biohacking tools that you use regularly and also that you've seen are the most helpful for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hot for recovery right now just because I think this is the thing, especially coming off of all these years of quarantine with everybody being pretty stressed, that we are only as fit as what we can recover from. And so understanding recovery is paramount. And, the baseline for that is like, are you getting enough sleep? You could be eating perfectly and training perfectly, but if your cortisol levels are high and you're not giving your body a chance to recharge, especially females, we make most of our HGH we make in sleep as women. And so that's an important piece of like resetting the brain and, setting in the things that happen during the day. It's another like Hubermanism, but it's like your brain needs rest in order to process like duration, path, and outcome. So it understands what's just gone on and can compact memories and just reset for the next day. And so we need that sleep. We need to be able to, have the pause in between everything. So if you're getting your sleep right and you're actually getting the hours of sleep and maybe we're layering in a little meditation, then I always talk about ice and breath as sort of the two best recovery tools. You and I talked about this a little bit when we got a chance to meet, and I know that you have a passion for cold as well, but there's nothing in my life that has quite reset my body, my nervous system, and made me learn more about myself than ice. I mean, there are other instances and things that I've utilized, but the cold exposure, even, and I'm a fan of heat exposure as well, but cold exposure for me has taught me so much about my body as an organism and really taught me how to understand my nervous system and how it operates. And that to me is like, that was the gateway to me understanding how I can keep my body healthy and how I can live in wellness.
When did you get started with cold?
A long time ago. I lived in New York City when I was like doing all that corporate gigs, and I was consistently going to Korean spas in Koreatown as well as the Russian and Turkish bathhouses, because as many people do know, and just as a reminder, like cold exposure has been around, especially in Finland and Sweden and Norway and Scandinavia. In many countries all over the world, cold exposure has been around for thousands of years. People have always sort of understood at some physiological, mental, or intuitive level the benefits of cold and what it made people feel like, and even maybe some of the healing properties of cold. But I would go to all these different these spas always had a cold plunge, which is something that wasn't really Americanized when I was younger and living in New York City. And so I would go to all these different bathhouses and spas and things like that, and really didn't understand the cold at that point, but thought, okay, well, there's this cold plunge and I should be using it. And like all these big tough cookie, Russian guys are using it and being like, yes. And like, so I have to get in and try. And so I would get in like 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds max. I would try to get up to my neck in a way that felt like a little bit competitive and a little like, okay, like, gamification. And I would feel the benefits, especially contrast therapy, right? From the Finnish saunas and the like sort of the wet rooms and stuff that they had to the cold rooms. And that was like, wow, I could see in my skin the way that it shunted blood in and out and sort of brought the capillaries to the surface of my skin. I could see things happening and I didn't quite understand them scientifically, but I knew that I liked it. And I definitely wasn't, I wasn't giving myself a forced minimum effective dose and really trying to biohack it in a way that I understood deeply, like we do now, or I do now and you do now. But I love that. And then 3.5, 4 years ago, I went and certified with XPT, and that's Extreme Performance Training Certification. That's run by Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese, two delightful, incredible athletes. And they have a combination of training and beach training and then pool training, where you get heavy weights in a pool. Please don't go out there and do that alone. Make sure you have friends with you if you're bringing weights into the pool. And I am still working on becoming a stronger swimmer, and I was very nervous in the pool. And so in the pool, I was with all of these athletic, mostly men, training in the pool, 40-pound dumbbells. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not as good at this as they are. I was having moments of panic under the water. I was, it was all held very safely. There were master divers in the pool, all of this. But it was like something like I had never done before. And, you get into, even if you're strong, you can get into your brain space of really having, I'm underwater, I can't breathe, right? And so I recognized that these men were kicking my ass and they were just like doing longer times and better and heavier weights and all this stuff. And I knew that the next module in the order and structure of the weekend and the training and all of that we were going to get into cold and sauna. And I decided, sort of after the pool training, when these men were just, showing me up in a way that was also beautiful. I was very excited and inspired by them. But I was like, I'm an A-type personality, warrior woman mode. I'm going to do, what can I do to be able to hold my own space here, right? Where is my biggest truth that I can hold and show I'm strong in other ways? And so I knew we were doing ice, and I decided before we started the ice and the sauna experience that I was going to go first, no matter what anybody said. And then I was going to get in the ice and stay in the full 3 minutes, which was the initial ask. And I was going to do it. I've been teaching in yoga for 6 or 7 years at that point. And I was going to do it using the breath I learned in yoga, plus some of the breath they were kind of coaching us around, but like a Zen master. So this is a really important lesson for anyone who does ice ever. It's it's the same thing as walking up to a barbell with a lot of weight on it. It's the same thing as you stand by the side of the ice tub in whatever way you use cold. You get to decide your mindset, and the way that you approach the ice, the way you decide it's going to go, has a propensity to make it go that way. So that's a huge lesson in life, right? That we stand in front of the barbell, we're about to back squat, or we stand in front of the ice tub and we're about to get in, and we get to decide in that moment energetically and physiologically that we are going to, nail it and do it well. And that is always going to be giving us a propensity to actually do the damn thing well. And so I treated it like that. And I literally there is no one who will not attest to this. I went first. My hand went up when they asked for volunteers. I was like, I'm going first no matter what. I got in the ice. I stepped into the ice like the most beautiful ballerina from my past life, took one little deep breath, went right to nasal breathing, got in like a Zen master, sat with I had crossed my arms over my chest, and just, you would not have known that I was in sub 40-degree temperatures. And I got this is also the competitive nature in me. I was like, okay, great. I'm doing the thing. I'm controlling my breath and figuring out my nervous system. And also, here are all these big, strong CrossFit, triathlete men that are all certifying and doing different things. And I felt like, okay, here's where I get to hold my own. Here's where I get to have my version of this, weights in the pool. Yeah, I can crush it. And hopefully it helped some of the men feel like, if she can do that, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And then with other guys that were there, and there were some women there as well. It was just I wanted to inspire people, but I also wanted to hold my own for my own sake, for my own. One of the biggest benefits of ice, I believe, is building confidence and mental toughness.
Yes.
And so that was the example for me, where I was like, this is it. And then from that very day, I was like, I'm never going to do this. I'm always going to be able to give myself a minimum effective dose. I'm going to understand this more than I understand most other modalities. And I'm never going to let myself off the hook to say, I can't do this thing. I'm going to be good at this. And I decided, and I've never looked back. It is one of my favorite practices. Deliberate cold exposure the benefits are numerous. They are 10x the benefits you get from cryotherapy and cold showers. And I am not poo-pooing cold showers or cryotherapy. People should do that. There are short-term benefits. There are sleep-boosting benefits. There are mood-boosting benefits that we all need. But in Los Angeles, cryotherapy is $50 for 3 minutes. And I have a meat freezer that's filled with cold water on my roof and an ice tub, and I can buy ice for, $10 or $15. I'm just going to go and ice myself. The benefits for longevity are just the research is, there's an amazing amount of research, and the benefits are just, crushingly, overwhelmingly in the favor of ice baths.
Yeah, ice is really, really awesome. And I like what you said. It's kind of like approaching the barbell. You're like, you got to make that decision, you got to make that decision that I can do this. I'm going to do this, and period. And I remember when I used to work at a gym too, and I had this group of power lifters. They're women. And then a lot of times they're like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can. How is this going to feel? This is too much. And once they make that decision that I can, like the amount of like confidence that they have after that lift, that's just like, that's out of this world. It's like huge. And it's the same thing with ice. I feel like, you make the decision, you get in, you get out, you're like, holy crap, what did you just do? And then you can use the same confidence in so many other areas of your life because you've done something really hard, something that you thought that you cannot do.
Yeah. In an acute stress situation, right? Because this is the other thing that we don't talk enough about publicly, I think, really around cold exposure, which is we're not just getting in the ice to be like scandalous and, sensational and take great pictures for Instagram. We're getting in the ice to create a stimulus so that as we get out, our body will adapt and create a response that's adaptation, and that we get better around managing acute stress. So it's like, I say this all the time. It's like, we don't meditate to get good at meditation. We meditate, Emily Fletcher is my meditation guru, and I love her from Ziva. She founded Ziva Meditation, and she's an amazing woman. And she says that we don't meditate to get good at meditation. We meditate to get good at life. And it's the same exact thing with the ice. We put ourselves in an acute situation where there is high level stress for a short period of time, minimum effective dose, so that when the kids are crying or the traffic is crazy, or God forbid something happens where we have to like act on impulse really quickly, we will perform 50% as well as we practice. So imagine if you don't practice managing stress. So let's manage stress. We learn to manage it better. We learn to expose our body to something that's, a more insane level of stress than we normally deal with. We re-regulate our nervous system and our breathing patterns, and we understand then how to manage it when it happens in life, because guaranteed things are going to come up in life that are going to stress you the hell out.
Yeah. Oh, this is so true. I've noticed it myself in my everyday life. Absolutely. Like the things that used to, I don't know, freak me out a little bit. Now I'm like, it's not that I don't care or I don't, somebody drops like a mean comment, whatever, that it doesn't, like that I don't care at all. No, I do, but it's, it still hurts a little bit, but it's not like, why is this person doing that? Or I'm not like as reactive. I definitely have seen that change. And, with problems too, you're like, okay, I'm going to just figure it out. Even if I don't figure it out right this minute, take the time and then figure it out. It's just like you become calmer. This is what I've noticed, like just calmer. And able to handle the stress definitely a lot better.
Yeah, I think we learn how to underreact, quite a bit, because you are getting into the ice and you are doing this practice of underreaction.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so ice, meditation, red light. Is there anything else that you do like daily or frequently?
Yeah, breath work is the big thing. I always do breath work, a little in the morning, a little in the evening before I go to sleep, down-regulate the system. I've been playing a lot more with breath work at a level that feels like layering in some transformative breathing, some holotropic breathing, some emotional release, things like that. I've been working with people. Just got a beautiful new set of tuning forks, and I've been working a bit more in the spaces where it's a ritualistic practice. So where people are doing, there's a lot of talk now about releasing trauma, about medical or clinical psychedelic experiences. There's a lot going on in the plant medicine world, and in that space where I think there is an intention going into it and there's an integration coming out of it, people are releasing some traumas, shifting some big things that are happening in their body and their physiology and their mindset. And part of that experience of coming out of that and reintegrating back into their lives with sort of a newfound vision is, I think layering in the breathing to be able to keep things moving in your system and pass energy through. And so, like you can be really heavy on the science side of breathing. It does get you into parasympathetic state if you use it correctly. It can serve you contextually in any situation you're in. If I need to lift a car off a baby, I can figure out how to use my breath in a better way. If I need to be able to go to sleep at night and my mind is racing and I'm spinning and there's lots of things going on in the household and it's not letting me sleep, I can down regulate to a parasympathetic state and get my body to rest in under 5 minutes, no problem every time. And so you just need to, we need to train our bodies to understand the power of breath in all directions. And I think part of the thing I've learned from Casper and from really working breath for a number of years and this daily practice that I have is that emotionality is something that we don't have to say that our emotions need to be suppressed. We don't have to suppress them, but we can understand that they're not always our friends, that they are a reactionary response to something's happening in a moment in time. And we can decide how and when, in some cases, we want to explore and release those emotions, right? Have the feelings, better out than in. And part of the processing of that for me has been, how do I spend some time alone breathing? And how do I utilize tools like a breath belt or a kettlebell or just things that I'm utilizing, understanding chakra mapping. If you want to go to the woo adjacent side and get a little more woo woo, understanding where my body is in space, where I have mental or physical blocks in my body, like from a feeling sensation standpoint, and how I can release those. And the more I do that for me, the more I unpack my past issues, challenges, traumas, wins, everything in my life and understand myself, the better that I can work with my clients and help them unpack issues that are coming up, especially around dysfunction and dysregulation.
Yeah.
So breath, and it's free. You said this yourself. It takes some time. You need a little bit of an inclination of like which direction to maybe go, but it's free for the most part.
Yeah, it can really move the energy and move those those blockages, like break through them in a really amazing way. Like I've had after, I do a little breath work daily, kind of like maintenance, but then a couple of those longer classes that I've taken online and in person, a couple of them have been like, there's been a big cry. And then at the end of it, you're like,
my birthday was a couple days ago and I did some breathing and I was like, had a good cry. Like it was amazing, but it's also, an hour-long breathwork session where you're really riding the wave of a lot of things and you can have some beautiful release. I think that's very important. I think for women and men alike, and especially when men are not allowed to, societally, there's like confines around, don't emote. It's like, look, get your shit out. Get your emotions out, right? However, you want to go to the top of a mountain and primal scream, you want to go to a breathwork class, whatever your flavor is, there are ways for us to process emotion that are going to make us feel better and feel more whole and just like live in a better mood space, right? It's not easy. This is like this life and this journey that we're on is so beautiful. And also there are always going to be things that come up that stand in your way, right? So how do we deal with those things is a key to the mental well-being component, right?
Yeah. I feel like you almost like have to let those emotions out. Like it's really like people don't realize how dangerous it is to keep them inside because they can start living their own life, like cause you chronic pain, cause like chronic other symptoms, illnesses. It's a real thing. And I feel like, in the world of like modern medicine where everything is like fixable with a pill, this is not where people go first. They're not like, oh, maybe I should do breath work or cold exposure. They're like, oh, but the doctor said, take that pill. And I'm not saying that you should never take a pill. There's, I think, time and place for that too. But like, have we tried the basics? Have we done the most, like the simplest things sometimes that don't require putting anything into our bodies that's not already there? Like breath work, like I said, is available, and it's not always easy. It's breath work. It's called work for a reason. So every time I do it, I don't go into like, I'm so excited I get to do this. Honestly, it's like, yeah, it's hard. It's physically, it's work. It's almost like a workout. But then you gotta do the stuff if you want to feel better and if you want to find the most natural ways, I think.
Yeah, and just things as simple as like, I work with Patrick McEwen a little, and I've read all his books and taken his certification, and he's like one of the foremost researchers around breath, and he had a lot of breathing dysfunction and dysregulated biomechanics when he was a kid, asthma, and really researched it to a deep level to understand that if we just think and bring our awareness to nasal breathing more often during the course of our day, 90% of the day we should be having our mouths closed and using our nose because there's so many benefits to nasal breathing, and our noses are really made to do that. So it's just as simple as starting with something small, right? All this stuff we're talking about today, people can layer in. And, I do a lot of things in the realm of like the cutting edge biohacks. I'm taking bioregulators right now. I like have had injections of things. I was like one of Matt Cook's first I was his first hydrodissection patient, where he was like working on putting saline into these like nerve endings in my body, and like, just trying to fix and adjust and shift parts of my physical state by changing the environment in and outside of my body to help me like live longer, move better, and feel like I'm being more effective and efficient in my life. And, I don't think it's always, I think it's important for people to know where their edges are and to be safe and to get always, to have a conversation with whoever their medical practitioner or functional medicine doctor is, body worker, whatever, just like getting that team of people to say, okay, I feel like this sounds like a good idea. And there are times in my life and I'm like, I'm going to go do this thing. I don't know if it's a good idea, like just admittedly, but I've seen X, Y, and Z person do it. I've done my own research. And the reason I say I don't know if it's a good idea is I will do my own research. I will speak to the doctor. I'll have 14 conversations, but maybe it's a very new, technology or procedure or something. And I'm just curious about, will I like it? Is it going to work? And I put myself in those situations because I'm a biohacker and I take calculated risks that I've definitely had fails. I've definitely had fails. And I do that because I want to be able to coach the women that I work with. And in both, I have an online program called Wow Factor that you can find all that information at my Warrior Woman Mode handle on Instagram. But the Wow Factor program exists because I've tried a lot of things and I've won at a lot of things and I've failed at others. And this way, other people don't have to walk that path of making those mistakes. And, understanding that research I read about iodine that was like very targeted around males and jacking myself full of iodine wasn't the thing for me. It was like a fail. I was like having a big response to that. I didn't need iodine in my system. I don't have a thyroid condition. I was like, but I had a moment of being like, that's going to be great. Somebody tested me in a white lab coat and was like, oh my goodness, your estrogen levels are off and your testosterone is so low that it's crazy and you need a little as a woman and we're going to put you on DHEA and all of these things, a number of years ago, and and they were wrong. And clinically, I had to go to my 2 other functional doctors to have them double test. And I went on DHEA for 2.5 months. My entire body, like from the shoulders up, broke out like a teenager. And I was like embarrassed to go out in public. And just, it's hard. Like sometimes you don't want to walk out of the house because what people see is what, there are judgments in the world as much as we don't want there to be. And just understanding that here I am like a health and wellness professional and a biohacker. And here I am like just covered in acne that was just cystic and I couldn't make it go away. And it was really awful. And the lesson in that is like, you have to get a second opinion sometimes. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to understand what's going on in the research and you don't have to go it alone, right? Google is not going to be your friend when you're like, hey, I want to see what's up with thyroids. Like, you can't just go to the interwebs and do some research. You need to really ask qualified professionals. You need to have conversation. You need to read some research for yourself, or you need to find someone, it's like someone like you or someone like me can help people along the journey with nutrition, with fitness, because we've done the oodles of amount of certifications or research or reading or online, picking apart and aggregating the best of the best data and the best of the best experts. Because this is it, right? Nobody wants to spend 20 hours learning about what supplements to take. That's why you get a coach, so that you can get someone to give you the right advice for the long run. And that's why I have a job. That's why my business exists, because lots of contradictory information out there and everybody is their very bio-individual physiology. And so this is a game of patience. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Longevity specifically,
Definitely. So speaking of coaching, are you currently accepting new clients?
I take on four to 5 one-on-one clients a month. So yes, I'm accepting new clients. I have, I think, 1 spot in September, and then every month I try to take on 4 or 5 clients depending on what's going on with my work life and my online coaching. I do have an online course that's called Wow Factor. Wow stands for Women Optimizing Wellness, and that's a 12-module course. Some women choose to weave it in with a private one-on-one coaching and make it a full year experience. The online course is, I'm biased, but I've taken years to put it together, and There's a module on every component of well-being that for women that any woman starting out or even at a 201 level needs to say, okay, here's information. Let's define my baseline. Let's talk about what's going on with nutrition. Nutrition is the biggest module in the entire course, but there's 12 modules, and it is a self-paced course. And at the same time, you can only get one new module every 2 weeks because you know, just like I do, that adherence is the thing that's hard, right? If I tell you, here's 10 things you can do, start them all this week, chances are you're going to be in overwhelm. And so that's why it's important to me to pace things. It's important to me. I work with clients on longer term basis, at least 3 months at a time, if not a year. And, you know, I have many, many women who have game-changing progress, and it feels so good to be able to be a part of that. And let me be clear, I'm an amazing guide, but these women are the women that are coming in and they're ready to do the work and every day are showing up for themselves, even on the days where they're like, I didn't quite nail it today, but I'm going to come up and show up tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so that's really, you know, that's an important piece of the way that I work with women. So it's easy to find me, warriorwomanmode.com or on Instagram, and there's a link in my Instagram bio to the landing page for the online course. And I work with women all over the world. I'm really fortunate. You know, this is a big shift we've seen during quarantine, but I've worked with women in London and in Malaysia and all over the United States. And it's just a beautiful opportunity for us to create scenarios where there's cross-culturalism and we're all learning. I do some group calls with women together, and it's always really beautiful. We sometimes have some laughter and some tears, and it's you know, I know that you agree with this, but it's an era of time when we need to show up and advocate for each other as women. And also we need to like put down the judgmental bullshit. Like we just have to stop worrying about what we look like or what society says we should look like and be like, and understand that we're coming from a place of perfection in the right now. We're exactly where we need to be. We need to look in the mirror and show up for ourselves. We need to make sure that we're watching other women and listening to other women and not letting them undercut themselves, and that we're lifting each other up across, you know, fitness and well-being and just cheering each other on. It's we're all a little like alone and afraid right now, right? And it's a time for us, I think, to stand up together and be really in community. And that's, you know, that's like my soapbox that I've been preaching a lot. I've been preaching two things, like let's get into community and stop talking shit to ourselves in the mirror because we are better than that. And because we're our own worst enemies. Like, let's be honest, many women listening to this podcast right now, would you ever let a friend talk about themselves the way that you talk to yourself some days in the mirror? We would never let a friend do that. Mm-hmm. And that's my soapbox number one. And my soapbox number two, which will also, I hope, resonate with you, is just because Joe Rogan, who's amazing, and Jocko Willink and all those guys are rocking 20 and 30-minute ice plunges doesn't mean we all have to start with that level of ice plunge. There's no reason to intimidate us and make us feel like that's where we start. I'm a big proponent of pushing my edges in the ice, and I've been doing it for a long time. I think it's important for everyone to kind of know that minimum effective dose, not hypothermia.
No, it was that. No, that's not going to go well.
Yeah. So, so that's like, let's love up on ourselves and, you know.
Yeah. The self-talking is definitely a big one. And I feel like it's not only in front of the mirror, it's also like, what have I accomplished? You know, am I doing enough? Am I good enough at work? I mean, it's a daily thing for most of us, including myself, you know. It's interesting. So I had a chat with my coach, and then she said something pretty cool. It was like, and I know, again, you know, it can feel like something like too woo woo or like it's too out there, but it is true. So she said that, you know, you gotta like yourself, you gotta love yourself, and the universe would not have created you if it didn't like you. I was like, shit, yeah, that's pretty deep.
It is pretty deep. And listen, neurologically, when you wake up in the morning, every day, every morning, and you tell yourself the same thing, if it's a negative thing, your brain neurologically is going to find the way it wants to fire is the path of least resistance.
Yes.
So if you get up every day, and this isn't just about act as if and it will become, but there's a piece of that in there. if energetically you set the stage where things are going to go right, the propensity is that they will go right more often. If you set the stage where you're firing your neural pathways to think thoughts that are like, yes, everyone's talking about mindset now. Everyone's talking about think positively. It's not some Mary Poppins thing, right? It's how do I show up for myself and think good things? How do I understand that energetically I actually have control to direct what's going to happen in my life? And look, I'm no pro at it. I work at it every single day, just like you do, just like many of us do are in this space. But the sooner that we realize that we have power energetically to sort of shift context and break down constructs that we may have set up for ourselves. And by constructs, I just mean the way that we're talking to ourselves negatively, or a belief system that's like a blind spot where it's like, I look fat in these pants, or like, I'm not good enough. It's the sooner we can break those down and help each other to break those down, the better we can all be collectively. I mean, I have a lot of my clients do this one thing, and I will just say this to anyone who's listening or watching, which is like, get a big piece of paper. I write myself notes and quotes all over the place all the time. I hang them up, even down here. I've been hanging them on the TV with a magic marker and a piece of paper all over my house, the same thing. And they say things like, I have one at home that says, future languaging dictates present state. So speak about things as if they're happening. I got the new job. I found the new lover or lovers or whatever, like as if they have already happened, because that is the direction you want to be heading, right? Manifesting those things, another woo-woo word that is undercut sometimes, but manifesting those things in our life. And I have clients quite often take a piece of paper and write in big magic marker or whatever fancy way they want, and write the word enough and put it on your mirror in the bathroom, or put it on a Post-it if you want it tiny so no one can see it, or put it in your closet where you get dressed or whatever. And it's a twofold message. And the first message is enough. Enough with the bullshit negative self-talk, enough with putting yourself down, enough with thinking you aren't confident and an amazing creature on this planet, right? The universe has your back if you will only let it. And then the other piece of the enough is you are enough. You are enough exactly how you are right now, in this moment, in the mirror, in whatever state you are, with, baby food on your face, or 2 hours sleep, or whatever's going on in your life, missing that big lift or not winning the competition. You are still enough in this moment. And the more that we can feel that, the more that we can really live into that space, the better we can age, the better we can feel about our relationships, the better we can take care of our bodies and our minds and ourselves and our families and our communities. Because I really believe the future of building better communities lies a lot in the hands of females in the world, because we want to think about the organism before we think about ourselves in many cases. And so the better we can actually lean into self-care and self-worth, the better that we get to take care of the collective. And so, I love this conversation with you, because I know that you are a woman who is out there in the world saying, I am enough, you are enough. That's, taking care of other women and working with other people, men and women, to get their health up to par. And so I don't have to ask you that, but I think that we need to continue to spread the message like you are with this podcast and with all the work that you're doing in the world. So I want to honor you in that too, because I know that I can feel always that you have felt the same way in just our interaction and in meeting in that beautiful Morosco method training we just met in.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. You have a podcast too. Where can our listeners find that?
Yeah, it's called Wellpower, WELLPOWER, and it's on all the platforms that podcasts can be listened to. So, Spotify and Apple being the biggest ones, but it's all over Stitcher, and I have some wacky guests on there. And by wacky, it's all people I love of all different, places and spaces in life. And so learning more about biohacking and breath. Casper Vandermeulen is in one episode, who's one of my big mentors in the breath space. So anytime they want to check it out. And then my Wow Factor course is online and easy to find as well. And I'm happy to always answer messages. I answer every one of my DMs personally, every one of my emails. And I want especially women to not be afraid of outreaching during these times when it can be kind of hard, right? To be out there on your own and not know where you're headed with fitness and what direction. So
Yeah. And when you reach out, I just want to tell everybody, don't be so apologetic. It's your right to reach out. It's okay to reach out. You don't have to like preface that with, I am so sorry and I know that you're busy, but you can skip all that and go straight to the point. It's
Ask for what you want. You know, I have a couple personal training clients. I don't do a lot of personal training, but I have a couple personal training clients still that will, you know, you give them a heavier weight. That, oh, I'm sorry, or I didn't understand your direction, or which, by the way, is my fault that they're not understanding my cueing.
Yes.
It's my fault, not theirs.
Yes.
And so instead of saying I'm sorry, I make them say I'm sexy.
That's a good one.
And then it's like now I keep saying to people when they're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, okay, you're not sorry. You're sexy. You know, and I have one woman who's like, I will not say that. And she's like, I was like, we have to pick an S word. So she'd be like, I'm squirrel. Like, it's just, but it's super fun, right? It lightens the mood. We can stop being so darn apologetic the way we walk around in the world, and not just verbally, but with our behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
I love that you said that. And yes, write us, you know, write us both DMs and messages. And if we have boundaries, we're adults, we can say, I can't, I'm sorry, or I want to help you, or I'm sexy, or not today, or thank you for your patience. We can say all of those things, but write and ask the tough questions, and get every drop out of both myself and Kirsten that you can, because we have knowledge and information. Get every drop. You know, I have plenty of free offerings like my podcast and information notes I write back to people to get them started on the journey. And then I have, you know, many ways that you can get involved with me on different levels of, you know, investment. It's a time, energy, money investment. But, you know, because you have a coach, just like I have coaches and mentors and a whole team of people I work with, this is how we get better faster. Is we work with people who have laid the groundwork before us and walked the path. Even if they're just a block ahead of us, they've walked the path and they can advise us. And so that's why you and I exist in the world. That's why I'm so happy to be having this chat with you. Yeah,
me too. This has been great. And I feel like we could go on and on for a couple more hours.
We'll do that over like coffee and hopefully in person sometime soon.
Yes, hopefully. Well, thank you again for being here today. And I make sure to link to everything that you mentioned in the show notes as well.
Okay, perfect. I love you so much, girl. Thank you for being out in the world, fighting the good fight and cheering every person on that you get a chance to work with. I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care. Bye.